Fog Entertainment back again with another ranking video. We're going to be ranking every episode of The Sopranos season 1 with 13 episodes to rank. People consider this, people commenting all over the vids, oh, The Sopranos season 1's by far the worst season. I would disagree with that. I feel like it's not. Like, yes, there's a lot of teething problems, and I think some of those teething problems continue throughout the show, but I'd say it's not the worst season. We'll decide that at the end, though, but we have to kick off with the worst episode, and yeah, it is episode 12 of season 1. You get so much hype, right? Oh, we're going to kill Tony. Mikey and Junior to come up with the whole, we're going to kill Tony, right? And what we get just ain't that good. I believe we rated this episode 4.5, right? And obviously with different ratings, blah, blah, blah. But you've got to look at episodes in context of, like, its position in the season. And just, like, ratings do matter, of course. Like, we don't dish out the ratings out of 10 for no reason. But seeing this, right, well, I've talked about it a million times, and I'll never really forget the scene. But the scene with the two hitmen trying to kill Tony is absolutely horrendous. No one is going to tell me otherwise. I don't care. You can get botched hits, right? Blah, blah, blah. But no, this is like one of the worst scenes in TV history. And yeah, you know what? The Soprano fanboys will probably sing to the cows come home about how good this show is. But when you've stuff like this, it really waters down your product. Enough said. Moving in though to the second worst episode. It's college. And yet some people say this episode is like one of the greatest in TV history because, we get to see Tony Soprano kill his first victim on screen. Of course, it's not his first kill, but come on, man. He chokes a guy with a bit of clothes wire at the back, man, and we're supposed to mark out about it. Such a slow episode where he's going to check colleges, man. Just sucked. Up next is a hit, and it's a standalone episode, right? It's a wee dive into the music business from Christopher and Adriana's standpoint, but from the viewer standpoint at home, it kinda derails momentum towards the latter stage of the season, in my opinion. Like episode 9, you know, you've got the feud with Tony and Junior escalating, and then like episode 10 is literally just Chris trying to get into business with this massive genius guy. Again, it's a standalone episode. It's all right. Like you get these. I mean, you get like 3 of these a season, but I felt like the placement was poor. It should have been earlier on in the show. Episode 7. Down Neck is up next. Again, this episode is like flashback heavy. It shows you like young Tony. I mean, I actually like the incorporation of flashbacks in the shows, but at the same time, this just came across as very like cringy. Like Tony explaining that he thought his dad was like jobbing him out essentially, and he was taking Janice, his sister, to like the amusement park. But it turns out all the guys were taking their kids there. Not as any sort of Nancy parade, but because they could do their business behind like the rest of the people's backs, so to speak. And yeah, it's just a kind of filler episode. He basically just spends most of it talking to the Shrink, which again, I mean, no issues with. I mean, I think the Shrink's a good character, but that's why it comes in here. Next episode though, 46 long. It is episode 2 of the show. Again, we do get introduced to Jackie Aprile in this episode. We do get like a sit down between him, Tony, and Junior. But what doesn't help it here is it's like just straight after the pilot, and I feel like the show does kick off decently strong in the pilot. But in this episode, like you're building up Christopher and Brendan, and that's all you've really got. You've just got them doing a bits of stealing, like Paulie, Silvio, and other people. They get literally no time in this episode, and it's literally the Brendan show. And considering what happens in the next episode, it is a bit of a waste, but it's still a decent episode. Up next, we've got the Legend of Maltasanti, or whatever it's called, episode 8 of season 1. Another Chris-centered episode where he's like dealing with like the demons of killing the guy in the pilot, where him and Georgie go dig up the body. Then he's like confiding in Polly about, does it get any easier, Polly? Will I be able to sleep about killing all these bodies? And then Polly's like, well, you know what? When you kill more of them, it gets easier. And then also like you've got the scene where he loses his cool in the pastry shop. This also in this episode you get the FBI paying a visit to Tony. Which we tried the back door, Tom, and then, you know, you've AJ sitting there eating his ice cream while Mario Kart's on, just stuffing his face like the fat bastard that he is. But by this point, you know, we're kind of looking at episodes that are like 6.5, 7s out of 10. Nothing startling or epic. Would it really describe any episode though in season 1 as epic? No, I think the highest we gave an episode was 8, maybe 8.5. And the finale was not one of them. Yeah, the finale features a lot of deaths, of course. You've got Mikey's death, you've got Jimmy Alterieri's death, you've Chucky's death, you've Junior getting arrested, you've a lot of moves, a lot of shifts in the Soprano pyramid, so to speak. But like we discussed in the review, I mean, if you want a more in-depth version, of course, you're going to go have to check out the reviews. But it was just a rush job. Like, you literally killed like 3 characters off in 10 minutes, and like it was just very poorly written, in my opinion. Like, Christopher and Polly pulling the trigger, killing Mikey. Mikey sitting there fucking selling it, man, like he's on top of a dance floor and the greatest song in the world's on. I don't know what Mikey's into, so I'm not going to mention any. So what sort of song would Mikey Palmas listen to? I don't know what song he'd listen to, right? But very cheap. It just took away from like the Soprano fans will kiss this show's ass to the death, but aren't willing to like criticize it for stuff like this. Like, how can they talk about the realistic look into the mob and it's like they got the most realistic feel to a TV show ever, it feels real, but then you have stuff like this that's just completely awful. And then don't get me started in the episode before, because guess what, that was the worst episode of this season. It was awful, man. That shootout, absolutely atrocious. Up next is Boca. This episode literally just features around like the high school coach who wanted to move schools, essentially, and but Americans take that really badly, man, if he wants to move schools. So guess what, we're going to steal your golden retriever, we're going to offer you a new TV, and if you don't take the new TV, we're going to slit that golden bastard's throat, brother. We also had like Junior falling out with his missus because she was going around telling everyone but that he gives head, which it was funny when he like slapped the cake in her face, but it kind of like just completely took all the like Junior was like fucking fuming about it, man, and he does for ages, and then like it kind of just had a lackluster like end of the episode. But yeah, and it's like the final straw, I guess you could say, with Tony and Junior. Up next though, we've got episode 3. This is like the episode, Brendan's last episode. I feel like hijack. Bye, Jack. A very underrated line by Mikey Palmas, because obviously Mikey was hijacking, so he says hijack and then he shoots him. Bye, Jack. People might not have got that on like first watching, but I think that was actually a pretty decent line. But Jackie Aprile, of course, doesn't die in this episode, but he's gravely ill. Things aren't looking good for him in episode 3. But again, another decent episode and like a good little story arc, to be honest, where you got Christopher as well. In next though, in to the podium positions. Not quite though. 4th place. Maybe we get a wee penalty ahead for the next one. But it is Pax Soprana, where again, another like filler episode. Not an awful lot happening, but the ending scene was very good, where you had the Junior being appointed boss and you had like the secret camera on the guy's tie, and I feel like that was very, very well done. And people say it's one of the more iconic scenes in TV history. I'd say in terms of Sopranos, it definitely is. It's a very good image. Into our top 3, we've got the pilot. Now, the pilot, I think this goes for most shows, unless, like, they really execute it well. They kind of do feel out of sync towards the rest of the show, because, like, some of it's reshot, but some of it ain't, and you could clearly tell this in this episode. But I feel like it was a good episode. Like, I felt like it was a really good way to like introduce characters by having Tony have a shrink. I mean, of course, they just didn't do it. They didn't have him just have a shrink so they could introduce characters, but it was a very smart way of doing it. He's explaining to his shrink all these people, and that it makes sense and it's easy. But then again, after this, they don't really build on many of the characters like in the first couple of episodes, or I mean, the first season in general, and you kind of forget. But very good opener, very good ending to the episode, and overall, a strong pilot. Is it the greatest TV pilot of all time? No. But does it get the show off to a good start? Absolutely. And I don't think you could really complain too much from that standpoint. In the second place, though, it is Meadowlands. This is like when Tony essentially just lets Junior become acting boss. You've got the funeral of Jackie Aprile at the end. Another good image, kind of like this, similar to episode 6. You've got Tony stapling Mikey Palmas' chest. You've got Christopher, of course, the whole mock execution, the aftermath of all that. You've got Tony confronting Junior in his shop. He's like, next time you come in heavier, not at all. And then Tony took it to heart and came in heavier and heavier and heavier because he's a fat bastard. But yeah, another very good episode here from The Sopranos. And that leaves us with our number one spot. Can you remember which one's left, guys? It is Nobody Knows Anything, which is episode 11 of season 1. A very, very, very good episode, in my opinion. Of course, in this episode, you've got Jimmy Alderete and Pussy getting arrested. We then have what's it? Finn, the police officer, basically says that one of your guys has turned rat, Tony, and it has to be Big Pussy. And then before Tony can find out any information, he jumps off a bridge, and you get like a really good scene where Tony's freaking out and he confronts Polly and Silvio in like the meat factory. Good acting there. You know what? I'll give credit where credit is due. Very good. It felt very real, right? And I think this episode is just a step above the rest, in my opinion. And like I said, it is a very good episode, but episode 12 and 13 after it don't do this episode any favours. That 12 and 13 should have built on this, but instead it subtracted from it and really took away from it. And all that good stuff. But yeah, guys, that is it for The Sopranos, ranking every episode of season 1. Does this go against the general consensus? It probably does. I don't know what other people would probably say is the best episode for season 1. Maybe most people would probably say the finale, but for me, for us, it is Nobody Knows Anything. And I believe this episode, what did we give it? I believe this episode got an 8 from us, so therefore it makes it the highest episode, which, you know, for a TV show, it's considered like, the greatest thing since sliced bread and all that stuff. Should the first season, though, be getting an episode better than 8? And like I just said, clearly the best episode of the season, so nothing really close to it. Personally, they should. But anyway, until next time, that is it for Fog Entertainment. Until then, though, peace.